Ezra, before we get into the plan of which you have authored, and you made the case in the Wall Street Journal, I want to just take a step back here. And how are Canadians processing all of this between our two countries?
Well, the Liberal Party of Canada, they've decided that it's easier to run against Donald Trump in the next election than to run against the Canadian Conservative leader in the next election. So you've never seen a Canadian election like this before. All the Liberals are talking about is Trump. And by the way, Trudeau is gone now, but we've got Trudeau 2.0, a guy named Mark Carney, who is even worse. He was on the board of the World Economic Forum. He's got 3 passports. He's the ultimate globalist. He was the head of the State Bank, the Federal Reserve. It's called the Bank of Canada. And then he went over to the UK and he headed the Bank of England. And while he was there, he was friends with Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's right-hand woman. So this guy is the worst. I don't even think he lives in Canada. His wife still lives in New York where she works. He was selected in a Kamala Harris-style fake primary where foreign nationals were allowed to vote and children as young as 14. So this guy was installed and he's going straight to the top of the Canadian political food chain. And he has decided that running against America, running on an anti-America platform, and obviously anti-Trump is his way to win. Trouble is, that's terrible for ordinary Canadians.
So explain this to me. Was this a party vote? What exactly was the process here?
Yeah, Trudeau, for 9 years, he's been in so many scandals. People are sick of him. So he resigned and he said, I'm out of here as soon as the party chooses a successor to me. So they had an internal vote, but that internal vote is so fishy. 400,000 people registered to vote, but only 150,000 of those were qualified and certified and verified. So more than half of the votes were not qualified. What the heck was going on? And like I said, you didn't have to be a Canadian citizen to vote. And you didn't even have to be a grown-up. So 14-year-olds and foreign citizens chose our new prime minister, and he goes straight to the top. It would be as if Kamala Harris became president, but at least she was on a ballot in 2020. This is so undemocratic, and he doesn't have a mandate. He's down in the polls, and he knows that fighting with Trump will prick Canadians to come. He's playing Captain Canada. But the trouble is, when you fight with Trump over economics, you're going to get hurt. It's just a fact. America is 10 times bigger than us. And I'm really worried that there's what's called a moral hazard here, if you know what I mean. Donald Trump is used to negotiating with people who want a deal, and Trump is the one who's not afraid to walk away. That's how Trump did it in New York City when he was a real estate developer. But in this case, Trump is the one who wants a deal, but it's in the Liberal Party's interest not to get one. They want the fight, and believe it or not, they want the economic damage that the fight will cause so they can blame Trump for our looming recession rather than their own economics. It's really the worst of times in Canadian politics. But more to the point, I hate the fact that we're fighting. It's like Batman and Robin are fighting. We're the junior partner. There's no doubt about it. But I think we've got a friendship and a respect and I can't think of two countries that are better friends. And I'm worried that our liberal leaders are wrecking that just to win an election.
I think you're right. And look, I think all this is going to simmer down. I have great respect for Canadian patriots, not Trudeau, but the rank and file of Canadians have always been so decent and so good to us. And I think the 51st state thing is just a negotiation. But Ezra, you make a good point here. Could an unintended consequence of President Trump trying to rebalance some of these trade deals that have been not great for our own country here, could he unintentionally help the Liberal Party here? Could an unintended consequence of President Trump saber rattling, which I support, could be installing a really bad government of Canada and therefore thwarting what looks to be an ascendant conservative correction?
I think so. And you're exactly right to say unintended consequence. I think Trump likes yanking people's chains like Justin Trudeau. And so many of us love to see it. But there was some collateral damage there. And so I thought, you know what, we need a plan. How do we put this in America first terms? Because Canadians know what we want, but that's not going to move the needle with President Trump. How can we rephrase this in a way that maybe the president will listen to? And here's my take at it. And I'm obviously a Canadian citizen, but I've been a Trump supporter 3 elections in a row. We're the only Canadian media outlet that endorsed Trump 3 elections in a row. And we paid a price for that, by the way, under Trudeau. So here's my best effort. And Charlie, you tell me if I've got any holes in my argument, because I'm trying to work this out. Here's my theory.
Opportunity won't wait. Don't miss your chance to own the metal powering the tech revolution. Silver isn't just shiny, it's indispensable. It fuels clean energy, drives electric vehicles, and powers cutting-edge tech innovation. Here's the catch. Global demand is skyrocketing, but supplies are dwindling. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com to invest in the metal that's shaping tomorrow's breakthroughs. As a bonus, open a qualified account and receive 2 5-ounce Silver America the Beautiful coins absolutely free. Silver powers progress, and progress powers your profit. Go to noblegoldinvestments.com.
The biggest source of that trade deficit that President Trump talks about is because we sell a huge amount of crude oil to the United States, much more than we sell auto parts or agriculture. And that's because although America produces a lot of oil, it still consumes more than it produces and exports. So Canada fills the void. And so you're not going to get tariffs fixing that. A tariff is good to move a Honda factory from Mexico to the States because you just move the factory. But Canada's oil comes from the oil sands in Alberta, and you just can't move that. So a tariff is not going to move the oil to America. It's just going to make it more expensive for those U.S. refineries that buy it. But here's the thing. That oil, the Canadian oil sands, it's the 3rd largest proven reserves in the world, just behind Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. And it's just sitting just north of Montana. And the premier of the province of Alberta, that's sort of like the Texas of Canada, she's so pro-America. She went down to President Trump's inauguration. I don't know if you know that. She's so positive and upbeat. She has not given in to the vendetta-style politics of Trudeau. She knows Americans are our best friends. And she told me, I met her when she was down there on the inauguration. She says she would love it if Alberta could double the amount of oil that's produced in the oil sands. So here was my thinking. Instead of pushing away the oil sands, pull it close. Don't tariff it. Buy it all. 170 billion barrels of oil. Even if Alberta doubled the production, that's enough oil to take care of all of America's import needs for the next 50 years. It's a $13 trillion deal. I would think of it sort of like a real estate deal, but much more valuable than Greenland or Panama. And the thing is, Donald Trump negotiated the USMCA, which has a special side letter on oil. And it allows America to get preferential access to our oil. So what I would say, if I was trying to talk to my America First friends, I would say, don't push this oil away. China is already sniffing around. China is already trying to buy the oil sands. Don't let them in. Take the oil. Don't tariff it. It's practically yours anyways. What I mean by that is the companies that pump that oil, that steam it and produce it, they're either American owned or they're Canadian with a lot of American investors. So it's sort of American on every side you look at it. The producers are American. The consumers are American refineries. Oh, Charlie, I forgot my favorite part. If you buy all your foreign oil from ethical oil in Canada instead of conflict oil from OPEC, you don't need to have the Fifth Fleet stationed in the Persian Gulf anymore. That's a $50 billion a year expense, let alone the risk of human life. The reason that
so
the
I guess
U.S.
the question
military...
is, Ezra, would Canada be willing to sell? I mean, is Canada, are they open to a deal?
They already signed it under Donald Trump in the USMCA, and the premier of Alberta said, I want to do it. She wants to double it. So keep the price low because it's American consumers. Replace your Venice. Don't buy any more oil from Venezuela. Stop funding those guys. Don't buy any more oil from OPEC. Stop funding them. If you want to have your military in the Middle East on your own reasons, fine. But at least you won't have to do it to patrol your oil tankers. Alberta wants to sell it. The oil producers are ready to rock. Remember that Keystone XL pipeline? Joe Biden killed it on day one of his presidency. President Trump says he wants to revive it. That pipeline alone would bring 800,000 barrels of oil a day, which would replace a huge swath of OPEC oil. So, you know the old saying, don't get mad, don't get even, get ahead. That's what I would say to America First people is get ahead. Don't be distracted by these liberals in Ottawa. By the way, they don't speak for all Canadians. What do you really want when you say you want a 51st state? Do you really want 40 million people who in the Electoral College probably tilt a little bit Democrat? Do you really want the French-English bilingualism?
A little bit.
What you really want is you want to hug Canada close, get the oil, don't let China get it. Let's do trade. Don't let Trudeau and now Mark Carney knock you off your goal. Your goal is prosperity and security. If you bring those oil sands close, you're doing both. And your question's a good one, Charlie. The answer is the deal is already there. The Keystone XL is half built. The premier wants to do it. Say yes to the oil sands.
Hold
Don't
that thought.
Trudeau and Carney hate the oil sands.
I agree with all. I agree with all of that. Look, I got a lot of problems with the Canadian government. Whatever. I think that if we could negotiate some of the electricity stuff, get rid of some of the tariffs on American goods, love the oil deal. I think we should have all of our energy going after the Mexican drug cartels and the Chinese Communist Party. What would you say this is now resurrecting an otherwise unpopular Liberal Party?
Unfortunately, and here's why. Let's say someone's happily married. Let's say there's a happily married woman, and a man comes up to her and says, hey, divorce him and marry me. Well, that's shocking. That's sort of a indecent proposal, as the old movie with Woody Harrelson put it. But and so a lot of Canadians are saying, whoa, when you're saying join America, that's sort of asking me to break up my family. By the way, some other people who maybe were thinking of getting a divorce would say, yeah, I'd love to join the U.S. as a 51st state. My point is it started that whole serious debate in Canada over what I think was basically internet prickles. Trump is a master at that bombastic style. That's the Manhattan style. Canadians are a little bit more passive, maybe a little more thin-skinned. So I think that distracted like a million Canadians. And a million Canadians sort of took it personally. And I loved it because it was yanking Trudeau's chain. But Charlie, I'm going to agree with you. That probably cost the Conservative leader of Canada 5% in the polls. And believe me, all of us want that Conservative leader. His name is Pierre Poilievre. He's great. He would be a great international partner, a bilateral partner for America. I think that Trump knew how to needle Trudeau, but it sort of had that unintended consequence, you know?
Is this, let's just say you go to a bar in Alberta. Is this the number one thing folks are talking about right now?
Well, the thing is, Alberta is the most pro-America place in Canada. And Alberta's a little nervous because
Vancouver, Montreal, just a
those-
bar in Canada.
Yeah, I think so. I think some ordinary people are excited about the idea of becoming American. I just don't know if that's likely to happen. I think the risk is if the liberals win again because people are confused and like some people are actually saying the Americans are going to invade. I mean, I don't think serious people think that that's what's happening. I think Trump is just having some rhetorical fun. But yeah, Charlie, it is true. I think some people are freaking out. But I think that doing a deal like this, there's one more thing it gives Donald Trump, because let me come back to the America First point of view. How did this whole trade war start? You might remember in November, President Trump tweeted to Mexico and to Canada, get your borders under control before I become president. And instead of doing those two simple things, Trump said, fix the fentanyl issue, and stop the illegal migrants. Canada should do that on our own. But instead of doing that, Trudeau wanted to fight. So if you actually did this deal of a century with Canada, it's a $13 trillion 50-year deal. But you know what President Trump could demand? He could say, if we're going to buy all this oil from you, instead of from the Persian Gulf or Brazil or Mexico or whatever, then we want you to take some of that money and reinvest in your military. We want you to remove some of your tariffs on dairy and poultry and eggs. We want you to allow American banks to set up shop on Main Street, Canada. We want these basic, bilateral fairnesses. And by the way, Canadians would love that. We have terrible banks. We have the highest cell phone prices in the world. I would love it if American cell phone companies could compete up here. So if President Trump were to say to Canada, all right, we're going to do a deal for your oil. We're going to make you rich and we're going to make ourselves rich and we're going to get out of this Middle East oil business. But in return, you got to pump up your military. You got to get those F-35s. You got to patrol the north. You got to fix the border. You got to crack down on fentanyl. You got to get tougher with China. I think that's a deal that Trump could make. And that's a lasting deal. I think that's a bigger deal than Greenland. I think it's a bigger deal than Panama. I just sort of hope that if President Trump looked at it like some sort of a business deal or a real estate deal and thought, okay, how do I get all the benefit of the Canadian relationship without the downsides?
Yep.
I think that's the winner. And I think Canadians are a little thin-skinned on that 51st state thing. It would be like asking someone married, do you want to be my girlfriend? I think that's what happened there. But that's a distraction. Let's put that aside. And thanks for having me on, Charlie, and help me promote the plan.
Ezra, you're great. I love the plan. I will do that. God bless you, my friend. Thank you.